Pythagoras declared that the universal creator had fashioned two bodies in his own image. The first one was cosmos, with its myriads of suns, moons, and planets. The second was man, human being, in whose internal parts was reflected the entire universe. Radiations of our solar system have, among other things, given birth to the human being, as we know him today on our earthly plane in his physical appearance, his sevenfold personality, equipped with great powers and talents. But the human being is called to rise above this field of life, which has become a prison to him. And we will have to possess a new personality for this, a personality that has been transfigured and that is generally called soul human being.
We will describe a few aspects that we consider necessary for the better understanding of this topic. Of course, this is a share of our point of view, the point of view of the spiritual school of the Golden Rosy Cross, the point of view of human beings that have been trying all their lives since they decided and being involved in the path that we are suggesting. So for the better understanding of this topic, it will be good to know when we talk about personality, we are talking about the biological person that we can see with our eye as a human being, and also this biological person we consider that have a double etheric energy, that is the energy of our organs and this biological body. We are surrounded also by an astral being we call, or astral body, which is contains the energy that we create and we assimilate and irradiate from our feelings, sentiments, emotions, and sometimes inclinations. And we also have a mental body, contains our thoughts, sometimes the thoughts that are not ours, but the thoughts that we connected to. Besides that, we also possess an ego, and this ego has three centers from our point of view. One of the centers of the ego is in the mind, the other center is in the heart, and the other center it lays in the plexus solar, in the spleen and liver. The ego that lays in the spleen and liver system, it dominates and controls very easily to the other two, because there is, according to the spiritual school and its pupils, the majority percent of the heritage of previous experiences in life. Therefore, the majority percent of the I center. The personality is very egocentric. This means that concentrates the majority percent of its attention in itself, all it needs, and all it wants. We also possess a soul, which the consciousness is one aspect of the soul, together with the blood, the hormone system, the nervous system, and the serpent fire that go through the spine. And the consciousness, as part of this soul, we consider that it's egocentric as well, because it connects with the ego. How the consciousness in this world is considered the awareness of yourself and the surroundings, the awareness of what is good or not good, morally speaking, according to the present times. The spiritual school of the Golden Rosy Cross will add to that a state of consciousness is a state of mind, and will add to that the consciousness is just aware to what it connected, which is aware of the personality only. The consciousness is egocentric itself, and it doesn't recognize it and cannot connect at all. It cannot be conscious that we are part of a bigger being, which we call microcosm. We consider that is the real human being, that it contains all the aspects we have mentioned here, and is the real being that can connect with the whole universe energy through a source of energy that lays in the center of this microcosm, which we call Rose of the Heart or Spirit Spark. In other philosophies, this source is called the philosophical stone, the mustard seed in the Bible, or the sun within us. The consciousness is not aware of this part that can integrate and connect with the whole existence. And that's why we consider and we suggest that a transformation of the consciousness, it should take place in that level. We do understand that by just living on Earth, the consciousness suffers changes. That's normal and basic thing to happen. However, we consider that these changes are repetitive and go in a cycle as long as the human being can incarnate. And a real change, it will cause many incarnations or so much long time. That's why we consider that a life journey, paying attention to a real transformation of consciousness, is necessary. After this briefly description, I will let the word to one of my colleagues to continue to how we suggest and why this change should take place.
Thank you, Omar. As Omar was talking about microcosm, also to mention that Pythagoras declared that the universal creator had fashioned two bodies in his own image. The first one was cosmos, with its myriads of suns, moons, and planets. The second was man, human being, in whose internal parts was reflected the entire universe. Radiations of our solar system have, among other things, given birth to the human being, as we know him today on our earthly plane in his physical appearance, his sevenfold personality, equipped with great powers and talents. But the human being is called to rise above this field of life, which has become a prison to him. And we will have to possess a new personality for this, a personality that has been transfigured and that is generally called soul human being. Golden Rosy Cross' great goal is the liberation of the soul and of the spirit. Jakob Böhme compares the human soul to a seedling growing upward through the material nature of man in his quest of light. Every rebirth takes place through radiations, through intercosmic radiations. For the necessary resurrection that we are now approaching, different radiations are needed from those we have at our disposal so far. And the three mystery planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are actually belonging to the new solar system that will assist us in the coming development. The whole of humanity is being driven in a particular direction, and the point is whether you want to follow or not. It confronts each of us with a great choice: resurrection or denaturation. Our microcosm contains a plan and also all the possibilities to realize that plan. The mortal personality had to be formed by external forces. Next, it must be made conscious of itself. And then, in this growing consciousness, it must be made susceptible to all kinds of good and evil. The personality must pass through many kinds of experience, both of good and of evil, so that ultimately result will be the true self in the microcosm. And finally, a start could be made on the great work, the Mysterium Magnum. These three forces, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are now preparing us, are making us ripe for the morning of the resurrection. Uranus' influence affecting the human heart sanctuary. Through Uranus, we learn to think with the heart. In other words, to control our chaotic feelings. Neptune influence affecting the human head sanctuary. If the divine light rays of Neptune break through, then the renewal of the heart, and through understanding, through love, the renewal of the head, the awakening in the abstract being which ignites the divine spark will come. And Pluto is the force that ultimately recreates everything. Pluto is the recreator, the regenerator of the sacred human creative faculties. One force that must and will prove which person is suitable or possibly not yet suitable to walk the new paths. These three rays no longer play a role in building the human being because there is nothing left to be built or to prepare in the nature-born personality. That is why the three primary radiations forces are now propelling the human being to self-realization of the powers and aspects latent in us. The first task the human being will have to fulfill in this process is liberating his creative power from all the lower inclinations and instincts so that the pituitary gland will become completely free to focus on the higher life. Human being has many habits and many activities for which he needs to use his creative power. During the course of our daily work, often an excessive use must be made of mental faculties. Every mental effort, every intellectual activity requires the use of creative power. And every seeker has to consider whether his or her mental use of these powers and his or her thoughts are justified or not. If not, this will chain the person involved to this nature, and the monad will be prevented from manifesting itself. Every human being is in fact abusing holy creative power every hour of his or her life. If the monad can truly descend into the nature-born system on the basis of the liberated, purified pituitary gland, only then can we speak of a new soul state. Only then can we speak of immortality, of truly higher life. Then many higher powers are released that will be manifested, an absolute wisdom in an absolute knowledge. The human being is propelled to a new action. What you were not able to do in the past will now present no problems to all of us. Uranus and Neptune are propelled to sanctification of the creative functions in general and of the human mind in particular. And Pluto drives all these influences to a culmination, to a crisis. The three mystery planets are leading us to an entirely new apocalypse. The new heaven, which will spread itself over us, is the new heaven of the new other solar system, which lies hidden behind the one we know, and of which three radiations are now in the process of unfolding their powers. The new heaven, Earth, the new solar system, has always existed, and the initiates of all times have been connected with and have wholly lived out of it. The point is that the new heaven, Earth, is in the process of being unveiled to all of humanity. Eternity penetrates into time in order to make its presence known to humanity that is still in prison. From the struggle in pure yearning for the light will be born, and that is self-realization. That is the great work, that is the Mysterium Magnum. And we will have Uji to proceed further.
Thank you, Miloš. And dear friends, with this journey, with the force fields that surround us and is propelling humanity to a new dawn of consciousness, it will be important for us to ask ourselves some questions. Do we feel a greater sense of uncertainty in the world? Do we feel an increased number of anxiety in the world? If we do, dear friends, then that starts to be a beginning point for us to be aware of ourselves, to be aware of the deeper meaning of life. As a human being, we start off with that awareness, because that awareness opens the door. That awareness prepares us for transformation. That awareness gives us choices to make. And with that awareness, we are able to understand or to pay attention to the fragility and also to observe the real actors of the world. And we are also able to understand ourselves in responding to both this fragility of the world and the actors that drive events in the world. And once we are open to that change, then we are able to quiet our automatic responses to things and are able to join with friends, brothers and sisters, going like-minded persons who are going on a similar path and have some discussion with them like we are today. And as we start on such a journey, we are able to understand, quiet in us our natural impulses, and allow that voice that speaks from within ourselves, that voice that we call the rose of the heart, to speak and to direct us. And once it can do so, to the extent that we quiet those natural automatic impulses we have, then that world that opens from the rose of our hearts will respond to all the environment, will respond to these mystery planets that keep sending radiations to help us as a microcosmic system. And when we are able to respond to that from the rose of the heart, from that cornerstone that opens to a new world, then we are able to allow ourselves to change deeply, to allow ourselves to transform the consciousness coming from the new perspective of life, from the new soul of life. And then we are able to join mystery schools where we are able to join with other friends to go a path of transformation. And in those mystery schools, we can find forces, force fields that are enablers, that help. And together on that journey with others, we are able to respond to the light that surrounds us, that interpenetrates in us, and that light is able to guide us through the rose of the heart, through that lotus seed. And from there, we are able to, as is described in many of the universal teachings, go from greater light to greater light. And as such, we go from being an aware human being to a conscious human being, to sometimes also called a fire human being. And that fiery human being is the one who makes true the life of a conscious soul.